A shadow moved in the armory at 0200 hours. Commander Hayes froze. Someone was field stripping a Barrett 50 cal in complete darkness, by touch alone, faster than any operator he'd ever seen. He reached for his sidearm, then stopped. Those hands, that fluid precision, it couldn't be. The woman, they said, vanished in Kandahar. The ghost with a confirmed kill at over 2 miles. But she was dead, wasn't she? If you love your mom and dad, hit that subscribe button and show some love to her. Commander James Hayes had been running on 3 hours of sleep for the past week. The deployment to Syria was 72 hours out, and half his team was down with food poisoning from questionable MREs. He'd come to the armory at Camp Pendleton to personally inspect the long-range weapons systems, something he never delegated before a high-stakes mission. The lives of 18 men depended on equipment reliability, and Hayes trusted no one more than himself to ensure everything was battle-ready. The main lights were off, just the red emergency strips along the floor casting an eerie glow through the concrete bunker. He was about to hit the switch when he heard it. The distinct metallic click of a Barrett 50 caliber being disassembled. Someone was in his armory. At 2 in the morning, touching his weapons. Hayes' hand moved to his sidearm instinctively. He'd been a SEAL for 19 years, survived firefights in Fallujah, hostage rescues in Somalia, and black ops he could never talk about. His instincts had kept him alive when better men had died. And right now, every instinct screamed that something was very wrong. He moved silently along the wall, using shadows for cover, approaching the sound. The workspace came into view, and he saw her. A woman, late 20s or early 30s, sitting on a metal stool with her back partially to him. Her hands moved over the Barrett with a speed and precision that made his breath catch. She wasn't just cleaning it. She was performing a complete breakdown and rebuild, in near darkness, without hesitation. Each component removed, inspected, cleaned, and replaced in a fluid motion that spoke of thousands of hours of muscle memory. But it wasn't just the skill that stopped him. It was the way she held herself. The set of her shoulders. The tilt of her head. Something familiar in a way that made his chest tighten with impossible recognition. "You're supposed to be dead," Hayes said quietly, his hand still on his weapon. The woman didn't flinch. Didn't even pause in her work. Her fingers continued their mechanical dance over the rifle, as if she'd been expecting him all along. "I was," she said, her voice low and steady. For a while. She set down the bolt carrier group with care, then slowly turned to face him. The dim red light caught her features, and Hayes felt the floor shift beneath him. Ice blue eyes. A thin scar running from her left eyebrow to her temple. Sharp cheekbones that had gotten sharper, hollowed by suffering he could only imagine. Captain Sarah Mitchell. Marine Scout sniper. The legend they didn't talk about in polite company. The woman who'd made a confirmed kill at 3,247 meters in the mountains of Afghanistan. A shot so impossible that 3 separate review boards had to verify it before it went into the classified record books. She'd been operating with a joint task force, embedded with his SEAL team's sister unit, when everything went to hell. That was 3 years ago. The official report said she'd been killed when Taliban fighters overran their observation post. Her body was never recovered. The file was sealed. The mission erased. 18 operators lost that day, and the brass made it all disappear like it never happened. But here she sat, very much alive, field stripping his rifle like she owned the place. Sarah Mitchell died in Kandahar province on October 14th, Hayes said carefully. "I read the after-action report. Hell, I helped write parts of it." "You wrote a lie." She turned back to the Barrett, her hands resuming their work. "But I don't blame you for that. You wrote what they told you to write." Hayes stepped closer, his mind racing through protocols and possibilities. If she was alive, if she'd been captured and escaped, there were procedures, debriefings, medical evaluations, psychological assessments. You didn't just show up at a military installation 3 years later and start handling classified weapons systems. "How long?" he asked. "How long was I their guest?" Sarah chambered around with a sharp crack that echoed off the concrete walls. 18 months. Give or take. Hard to keep track when they keep you in a hole in the ground. The casual way she said it made Hayes' stomach turn. He'd been through SEER training, knew what capture meant in that part of the world. 18 months. Most men broke in 18 days. Taliban commanders have a thing about women who kill their officers, Sarah continued, her voice steady but distant. like she was describing something that happened to someone else. They wanted to know who trained me, who gave the orders, which targets were mine versus the team's. They were very thorough in their questions. Sarah, I told them nothing. She finally looked at him again, and he saw something fierce and unbroken in those blue eyes despite everything they'd endured. Not a name, not a mission, not a single tactical detail. They could have every piece of my body, but they couldn't have that. Hayes felt a wave of respect mixed with horror. How did you get out? A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Earthquake. Magnitude 6.3. Brought down half the compound. I killed 4 guards with a piece of rebar and walked out through the rubble. Took me 3 weeks to reach a village that wasn't hostile. Another month to get across the border into Tajikistan. She paused, her fingers stilling on the rifle. By then I was dead. Officially. Funeral with an empty casket. My daughter placed flowers on a grave with no body. Seemed cruel to come back just to disrupt her life again. You have a daughter? Hayes hadn't known. The personnel file he'd seen was bare bones, classified sections redacted. Emma. She's 8 now. Was 5 when I deployed. Sarah's voice cracked just slightly, the first real emotion breaking through. Lives with my sister in Virginia. Thinks her mom died a hero. Gets a survivor's benefit check every month. Has stability, a good school, friends. What was I supposed to do? Show up and explain that mommy was in a Taliban prison for a year and a half? That's not a burden a child should carry. Hayes pulled up a stool and sat down across from her. This was beyond his pay grade, beyond any scenario they'd trained for. So why come back now? Why here? Why tonight? Sarah's jaw tightened. She reached into her cargo pocket and pulled out a flash drive, setting it on the workbench between them. Because the man who sold our position, who got my team killed and got me captured, just made colonel. And he's deploying to Syria next week with your boys. The words hit Hayes like a physical blow. That's not possible. Every man on that mission was vetted. We lost 18 operators. No one would. His name is Marcus Vance. Sarah's voice went cold. He was the intelligence liaison assigned to our task force. Had access to all our patrol routes, safe houses, contact schedules. The attack that killed my team wasn't random. They were waiting for us. Knew exactly where we'd be, exactly when. Knew our strength, our armament, our extraction point. Hayes knew the name. Colonel Marcus Vance, now serving as intelligence coordinator for special operations in the Middle East Theater. Decorated officer, impeccable record, fast-tracked for general. He was scheduled to deploy with Hayes' team as their operational liaison. You have proof. Hayes kept his voice level, but his mind was already racing through implications. Sarah tapped the flash drive. Bank transfers from a shell corporation with links to Haqqani network financing. Encrypted communications between Vance and a Pakistani ISI officer known to coordinate with Taliban leadership. Satellite phone records showing calls made from his position to numbers in Quetta and Peshawar in the 72 hours before our position was hit. And a recording. She paused. I spent 6 months after I escaped tracking him. I'm a sniper, commander. Patience is what I do best. Hayes stared at the small piece of plastic that held the potential to destroy a career and expose a traitor embedded at the highest levels. Why bring this to me? Why not go through official channels? JAG, NCIS, hell, the FBI. Because Vance has protection. You don't rise that fast, survive that many rotations in sensitive positions without friends in high places. I already tried going through channels. Sarah's expression darkened. 6 weeks ago, I made contact with a captain in NCIS. 2 days later, he died in a car accident on the 405. Last month, I reached out to a Marine Corps investigator. He was mugged outside his apartment, beaten so badly he'll never work again. The evidence I gave them disappeared. And you think I'm different? I think you're deploying in 3 days with a man who'll sell you out the first chance he gets. I think your team deserves to know they've got a snake in their nest. Sarah stood, shouldering the Barrett like it weighed nothing. And I think you're the only person with enough pull to do something about it before more operators die. Hayes took the flash drive, feeling its weight despite its size. What's on the recording? Vance talking to his handler. Discussing payment for the op that killed my team. Talking about how one female sniper wouldn't be a big loss. How the Marines were idiots for putting women in combat roles anyway. Her voice remained steady, but Hayes saw her hand tighten on the rifle. He laughed, Commander. Laughed about selling out 18 operators. Said it was the easiest money he'd ever made. The rage that went through Hayes was white-hot and instantly controlled. 19 years of discipline kept it contained, channeled. If this is real, if it holds up, he won't just lose his career. He'll face execution. If it's real. For the first time, real anger flashed in Sarah's eyes. I spent 18 months in hell because of that man. I missed my daughter's 6th birthday, her first day of school, every milestone while I was chained in darkness being asked questions I wouldn't answer. Don't you dare question if it's real. Hayes held up his hand. Poor choice of words. I believe you. But evidence has to be verified. Chain of custody established. There are protocols. Protocols. Sarah laughed bitterly. You know what protocol says about me, Commander? I'm dead. I don't exist. The moment I walk into an official debrief, I become a problem. A complication. A woman who's supposed to be dead but isn't, making accusations against a rising star in the intelligence community. How do you think that plays out? She was right, and Hayes knew it. The military protected its own, especially officers with the right connections. A ghost accusing a colonel of treason would disappear again, this time permanently. So what's your play? Hayes asked. Sarah walked to the window, looking out at the dark California night. I need you to make sure this evidence gets to people who can't be bought. Senator Collins on the Armed Services Committee, she's clean. Admiral Richardson at SOCOM, he lost son in Afghanistan, won't tolerate traitors. And I need you to keep Vance from deploying. Once he's overseas, he's got too many opportunities to disappear evidence, eliminate witnesses. And what about you? She turned back to him, and in her eyes, Hayes saw something that chilled him more than anything else that night. The look of someone who'd already made their final decision. I'm already dead, remember? After tonight, I disappear again. Maybe I go back to my daughter, maybe I don't. Haven't decided yet if she's better off with her heroic dead mother or her very alive, very broken one. Sarah moved toward the door, then paused. But before I go, I'm going to Syria. Absolutely not. Hayes stood. If Vance is dirty, we handle it through proper channels. You're not going rogue on some revenge mission. It's not revenge. Sarah's voice was calm, almost gentle. It's accountability. Vance is planning something, Commander. That deployment you're running? It's a setup. He's going to sell out your team just like he sold out mine. And I'm going to be there to make sure that doesn't happen. How could you possibly know that? Because I've been watching him for 6 months. Documented his patterns, his contacts, his communications. 3 weeks ago, his ISI handler made contact again. Same encryption protocols, same security measures as before. Whatever Vance is planning, it's big. And your team is right in the middle of it. Hayes' mind raced. If she was right, if Vance was planning to compromise another operation, time was critical. But sending a dead woman on an unauthorized mission into a combat zone was beyond any acceptable protocol. Give me 48 hours, Hayes said. I'll get this evidence to Collins and Richardson. We'll have Vance in custody before wheels up. Sarah shook her head. You're underestimating his connections. The moment you move against him, he'll know. He's got sources everywhere, probably has this base wired. Why do you think I came at 0200? Why do you think I'm not officially here? She tapped the side of her head. I've learned a few things about paranoia in the last 3 years. Then what do you propose? You take the evidence, but you don't move on it yet. Let Vance think he's clear. Let him deploy. And I'll be there, watching, waiting. The moment he makes contact with his handlers, the moment he tries to sell out your position, I'll have proof that's undeniable. Real time, in theater, caught in the act. And then, Sarah's smile was cold. Then I eliminate the threat. It's what snipers do, Commander. Hayes was shaking his head before she finished. I can't authorize that. I won't authorize an assassination of a U.S. military officer, even a dirty one. I'm not asking for authorization. I'm already dead, remember? You never saw me. This conversation never happened. She moved to the door, paused with her hand on the frame. But you should know something. That Barrett I was cleaning? It's not yours. It's mine. My personal weapon from my last deployment. I stored it here before I was captured. Figured it was safer than government storage where people ask questions. Hayes looked at the rifle, then back at her. How did you even get on base? Muscle memory. I was stationed here for 2 years before Afghanistan. Know every guard rotation, every blind spot, every security gap. Place hasn't changed much. She smiled slightly. Some skills you don't forget. Sarah, listen to me. I understand what you've been through. I understand the need for justice. But this isn't the way. Let the system work. The system declared me dead and moved on. The system is about to send good men into an ambush. The system protected the man who tortured me for 18 months. Her voice remained level, but Hayes heard the steel beneath it. I trusted the system once, Commander. Look where that got me. Before Hayes could respond, she was gone, moving through the shadows with the practiced silence of someone who'd learned the hard way that noise meant death. He stood alone in the armory, flash drive in hand, mind spinning with impossible choices. He could report this, file it up the chain of command, let the investigators handle it. But Sarah was right about one thing. If Vance had the connection she claimed, that evidence would disappear. And if there was even a chance she was right about the deployment being compromised, Hayes had a duty to protect his team. Or he could do nothing. Let Sarah play her game, see where it led. But that meant sending his men into potential danger with a possible traitor in their midst. It meant trusting a woman who'd been presumed dead for 3 years, who'd been held and tortured, who might not be thinking clearly. Hayes inserted the flash drive into his laptop, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Whatever was on here would determine his next move. If it was solid, if it was real, then everything changed. The files opened. Bank records first, showing transfers from a Cayman Islands account to Vance's personal holdings. Amounts that lined up with the dates of major operations. Communications intercepts, translated from Urdu and Pashto, discussing an American source providing intelligence. Satellite phone logs showing calls from Vance's position to known Taliban facilitators. And then the recording. Hayes plugged in his headphones and hit play. The audio was scratchy, clearly recorded from a distance, but the voices were clear enough. The operation proceeds as planned. That was Vance, no question. Hayes had sat in enough briefings with the man to know his voice. Next week, Syria. The SEAL team will be at the extraction point at 0300 local. Complete unit roster and armament attached. Another voice, heavily accented. And payment. Same terms as before. Half up front, half on confirmation. These are Tier 1 operators, gentlemen. Premium price for premium targets. Your country considers you a hero, Colonel. Vance laughed. My country pays me $60,000 a year to put my life on the line for politicians who've never heard a shot fired in anger. You pay me more in a single operation than I'd make in 5 years of service. Patriotism doesn't pay my daughter's college tuition. The recording continued for another 3 minutes. Details of the Syria operation, extraction routes, communication protocols, safe house locations. Everything an enemy would need to turn a routine mission into a massacre. Hayes stopped the playback, feeling sick. Sarah hadn't been exaggerating. If anything, she'd undersold how deep Vance's betrayal ran. This wasn't just selling out one operation. This was systematic, repeated treason spanning years. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Now you know. Trust the evidence. Trust your instincts. Don't trust the system. She's watching. Hayes looked around the armory, searching the shadows, but saw nothing. Sarah was a ghost in truth now, visible only when she chose to be. He had a decision to make. The smart move, the by-the-book move, was to take this evidence to his commanding officer immediately. Wake up the base commander, get NCIS involved, lock down Vance before he could run. But Sarah's words echoed in his mind. The NCIS agent who died. The investigator who was beaten. If Vance had that kind of protection, that kind of reach, then going official might just get more people killed. Hayes made his decision. He copied the files to his personal encrypted drive, then wiped the original flash drive and placed it in his pocket. Whatever happened next, he needed leverage, insurance. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Admiral Richardson, sir. This is Commander Hayes. I apologize for the hour, but we have a critical security situation that requires your immediate attention. The next 48 hours were a carefully orchestrated dance. Hayes briefed Admiral Richardson privately, showing him the evidence. The Admiral's face had gone stone cold as he listened to the recording. Within 6 hours, Senator Collins was read in. Within 12, a quiet investigation was opened, so compartmentalized that only 5 people in the entire military knew it existed. Vance continued his deployment preparation, unaware that every move was now being documented. His communications were monitored, his contacts traced, his financial records subpoenaed under sealed warrants. The trap was being built around him with careful precision. But Hayes couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah was right about one thing. They needed to catch Vance in the act. The evidence they had was strong, But a good defense attorney could create doubt. Claim the recordings were faked, the financial records circumstantial. They needed him caught red-handed making contact with enemy forces, which meant the Syria deployment was still on. Hayes gathered his team the day before Wheels Up. 18 of the best operators he'd ever worked with. Men he'd trust with his life, who'd proven themselves in combat from Ramadi to Kandahar. He looked at their faces and hated that he couldn't tell them everything. "Listen up," Hayes said. "We've got a development. There's a possibility our operational security has been compromised. I can't give you details, but I need everyone sharp. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is." His second-in-command, Lieutenant Mason, frowned. "Sir, should we scrub the mission?" "Negative. We proceed as planned, but with enhanced security protocols. No one outside this room knows our actual positions. I'll be running communications personally, no liaisons." He didn't look at where Vance stood at the back of the room. "We adapt and overcome. That's what we do." The team nodded, accepting it. They were SEALs. Operational security was always paramount. If their commander said be extra vigilant, they'd be extra vigilant. That night, Hayes returned to the armory one final time. He didn't know if Sarah would be there, but he had to try. She was sitting in the same spot, her Barrett field stripped on the bench before her. "You listened to the recording," Sarah said without looking up. "Yeah. And we're moving on, Vance. But we need him caught in the act. Which means Syria happens." Sarah nodded slowly. "I'll be there. I know. And I can't stop you. But I can give you this." Hayes set down a tactical radio, encrypted to his team's frequency. "You want to protect my men? Fine. Be our guardian angel. But you stay in communication, you follow my operational protocols, and if I give you a stand-down order, you stand down." Sarah picked up the radio, examined it. "And if Vance makes his move? Then you do what you do best." "But Sarah?" Hayes waited until she looked at him. "You take the shot only if there's no other option. We want him alive to answer for what he's done. And if alive isn't possible?" Hayes met her ice-blue eyes steadily. "Then you make sure my men get home. That's the priority." Sarah extended her hand. Hayes shook it, feeling the calluses from years of weapons handling, the strength in her grip. "One more thing," Hayes said. "After this is over, you're coming in. Official debrief, medical evaluation, the works. And then you're going home to your daughter. She deserves to know her mother's alive." For the first time, Hayes saw Sarah's composure crack. Tears welled in her eyes, though she blinked them back. "What if I'm too broken? What if she's better off without me? You survived 18 months of hell without breaking. You tracked down your team's killer when everyone else gave up. You're here, now, risking everything to save operators you've never met." Hayes' voice was firm. "You're not broken, Captain Mitchell. You're exactly the mother your daughter deserves. Trust me on that." Sarah nodded, unable to speak. Syria was everything Hayes expected and worse. The desert heat, the hostile terrain, the constant awareness that death could come from any direction. His team moved through their objectives with practiced efficiency, but everyone felt the tension. Something was wrong, even if they couldn't articulate what. Vance played his role perfectly. Helpful, professional, always where he needed to be. But Hayes watched him. Saw the moments when Vance checked his satellite phone. The brief absences. The private communications. On the third night, Hayes got a message on his encrypted radio. Sarah's voice, barely a whisper. "Contact made. Vance met with 2 individuals, 1 kilometer northeast of your position. Transmitted data via encrypted burst. Targets are moving to intercept your extraction point." Hayes' blood went cold. "How many?" "Thermal imaging shows 15, possibly 20. Technical mounted weapons, likely RPGs. They're setting up an ambush at your primary exfil." It was happening, just like Sarah said it would. Vance had sold them out, and enemy forces were moving to intercept. "Team, listen up," Hayes said calmly. "Change of plans. Secondary extraction point, now. Move with purpose, but stay quiet." His men responded immediately, years of training overriding questions. They shifted direction, melting into the night. Vance approached. "Commander, what's going on? We should stick to the plan." "Plans change, Colonel. New intel suggests our primary exfil is compromised." Hayes watched Vance's face carefully. There. Just a flicker. Surprise, quickly hidden. Vance hadn't expected them to know. "What intel?" "I haven't received any communication about." "Above your clearance, Colonel." Hayes kept his voice level. "We're moving. That's final." As the team repositioned, Hayes keyed his radio. Sarah, you have eyes on Vance. Affirmative. He just sent another burst transmission, probably updating his friends about your change in position. Can you stop the transmission? Already did. Jammed his frequency. He doesn't know it yet, but his handlers aren't receiving. Hayes smiled grimly. What about the enemy force? Give me 5 minutes. Hayes didn't ask what she meant. He focused on getting his team to cover, setting up defensive positions at the secondary site. 4 minutes and 30 seconds later, his radio crackled. Threat neutralized. Took out their technicals engine block at 2,800 meters. They're stranded and confused. You've got a clear exit. Hayes felt a surge of respect. 2,800 meters. Over 1.5 miles. In darkness. With a single shot that disabled a vehicle without killing anyone, giving them no clear indication of where the shot came from. Outstanding work. Fall back to exfil secondary. We'll extract together. Negative, Commander. I've got one more target to handle. Before Hayes could respond, Sarah's line went dead. Vance had separated from the group, moving toward a rocky outcropping with his satellite phone. Hayes watched through night vision as the colonel frantically tried to send messages, unaware his transmissions were being blocked. A figure materialized from the shadows behind Vance. Sarah, moving like smoke, the Barrett slung across her back, a suppressed pistol in her hand. Hello, Marcus. Vance spun, reaching for his sidearm. Sarah shot his hand, precise and surgical. The colonel screamed, clutching his shattered fingers. 3 years, Sarah said quietly, her voice carrying in the desert night. 3 years you thought you got away with it. Thought I was dead, just another casualty of war. Recognition dawned on Vance's face. Mitchell? You're supposed to be dead. Yes, I've heard that before. Sarah moved closer, her pistol never wavering. Do you remember what you told them? Your Taliban friends? You said one female sniper wouldn't be a big loss. That women didn't belong in combat anyway. Vance's face went pale. I never. There's no proof. There's plenty of proof. Bank records, communications, recordings of you selling out American operators for money. Commander Hayes has it all. And by now, so does the Senate Armed Services Committee. Hayes and 2 of his men approached from behind Sarah, weapons ready. Colonel Marcus Vance, Hayes said formally. You're under arrest for treason, conspiracy to commit murder, and the deaths of 18 American service members. You have the right to remain silent. As Hayes secured Vance, the colonel's composure finally cracked. You don't understand. They threatened my family. They had pictures of my daughter. They said if I didn't cooperate. Stop. Sarah's voice cut through his excuses like a blade. You sold out your first team 3 years ago. Your daughter was in elementary school then, and nothing happened to her. This wasn't about protecting your family. It was about money and power and your complete lack of honor. The extraction bird arrived 20 minutes later. As Vance was led away in restraints, Hayes turned to Sarah. Come with us. It's time to go home. Sarah looked at the helicopter, then back at the desert night. I spent 3 years as a ghost, Commander. Not sure I know how to be real again. Your daughter's name is Emma. She's 8 years old. She lives with your sister in Virginia. She visits your empty grave and leaves flowers. Hayes stepped closer. She deserves to know her mother is alive. You've done your duty. You've served with honor. Now it's time to go home and serve your family. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, but I'm keeping the Barrett. Hayes laughed. Wouldn't dream of taking it from you. 6 months later, Sarah Mitchell sat on her sister's back porch in Virginia, watching Emma play in the yard. The reunion had been difficult. Tears, anger, confusion, and finally, slowly, understanding. Emma had questions that Sarah answered as honestly as an 8-year-old could handle. Yes, Mommy had been hurt. Yes, Mommy had been very far away. No, Mommy wasn't going to leave again. The therapy helped, both individual and family. Learning to be a mother again after 3 years of being a weapon. Learning to let someone else stand guard while she slept. Learning that it was okay to not be okay. Commander Hayes visited monthly, checking in. He'd been promoted to captain, assigned to a training command stateside. The Syria operation and Vance's arrest had made waves through the special operations community. Reforms were being implemented, security protocols tightened. Vance himself was awaiting trial at Leavenworth, facing charges that would likely result in life imprisonment, if not execution. Penny, for your thoughts? Her sister, Jennifer, sat down beside her with 2 glasses of iced tea. just thinking about how different everything could have been. If that earthquake hadn't happened. If I hadn't escaped. If I'd given up. Jennifer squeezed her hand. But you didn't. You survived. You came home. And Emma has her mother back. Sarah watched her daughter laugh as she chased a butterfly across the grass. I missed so much of her life. I can't get those years back. No. But you can be here for all the years ahead. Jennifer smiled. And between you and me, having a mom who's a legendary sniper is going to make her very popular in middle school. Sarah laughed despite herself. I'm not telling her war stories. You won't have to. The internet exists. Give it a few years, and she'll find out on her own that her mom is a certified badass. That evening, after Emma was in bed, Sarah sat in her room looking at the Medal of Honor that had been awarded posthumously 3 years ago and was now officially returned to its living recipient. The citation read, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of life above and beyond the call of duty." They had no idea. The real test of her courage hadn't been on a battlefield. It had been in choosing to live when being dead was easier. Choosing to be a mother when being a ghost was safer. Choosing to trust again when trust had cost her everything. Her phone buzzed. A text from Hayes. Team reunion next month. You're invited. We're calling it the Guardian Angel Gathering. Your seat is reserved. Sarah smiled and typed back, I'll be there. And I'm bringing my daughter. She should meet the men her mother helped save. She looked out the window at the quiet Virginia night. Somewhere out there, other operators were running missions, taking risks, standing the watch. She'd done her part. Now it was time to stand watch over different territory. A little girl's dreams. A family rebuilding. A life reclaimed from the darkness. The Barrett .50 sat in its case in the closet, cleaned and ready. She'd never need it again, but it stayed close. Some tools you kept sharp, even in peacetime. Some skills never faded. Sarah Mitchell was no longer a ghost. She was a mother, a survivor, and a reminder that the warriors who fall aren't always lost. Sometimes they come back. Sometimes they save not just themselves, but everyone around them. And sometimes, in the quiet moments before sleep, she could almost hear her team from that terrible day in Afghanistan. Not accusing, not haunting, but grateful, proud, telling her what she needed to hear. Mission complete, come home, rest now. So she did. Where are you watching from? Drop your state in the comments below.